Amazing!
Welcome to episode 75, very special edition. We're going back to the future for the third time. Today I'm going to be joined by two previous guests to see how they got on in the future events that we spoke about back when we originally recorded their podcast episodes. Today I'm going to be joined by Finbarr McCann and Gary Rea. Let's see how they got on. Finbarr, thanks very much for coming back onto the podcast. The last time you and I spoke was way back in episode 29. I'm guessing that's autumn 2024 or thereabouts. You shared your journey from your amputation, and you were looking forward to taking on a new kind of regime with your fitness, and you had a few goals in mind. So, in your own words, how have you been getting on since?
Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me back. Great to be chatting to you again. Things have progressed slowly. And yeah, we've had all kinds of issues and we've done everything wrong and learned how to do it right. And no, a lot's happened since the last time I was talking to you now.
You were talking about trying out this new blade. We have seen you since. Anybody that's around Omagh has seen you running on the pavements. But, you know, whilst it looks very natural and how you've actually adapted to it, it looks really, really cool at the minute. There was a few teething problems, I'm guessing, and I know they put up a few posts on your Insta feed and you were tinkering about with grinders and screws and WD-40 and all sorts of stuff was going on. It was like an episode of the A-Team from one week to the next with all sorts of wee kind of mechanicals, if you'll pardon the pun. So what sort of issues have you had with the whole setup, Finbarr?
I hope my prosthetist doesn't see this anyway, because he'll not be too impressed with me doing all the tinkering myself. Yeah, so the last time I was talking to you, I had only really got the running blade and had been out on it a few times. It was giving me a lot of bother, a lot of pain in my lower back and things like that. So yeah, started running to Belfast, up to the prosthetist in Belfast, and we tried a few things, tried changing a few things, loosening and tightening and just changing the geometry of it really, but it didn't really work out and we ended up having to make a new socket for it just to fit better. That's a long enough process. That probably took, give or take, 2 months to get that done. After that, once I got the new socket and it fitting properly, yeah, things started moving forward then. Comfort-wise, it was very comfortable, and I was able to put a kilometer or two together, and try and step it out each time that I went out on it, go a little bit further, things like that. And then ran into all kinds of problems with bits coming loose and in the middle of a run, parts falling off it, and things like that too.
You were very, very keen to get up and get at the running and to get picking on with your life and with your sport and your fitness. And I suppose looking back, were you maybe a bit too keen when you think back? Because I was thinking, maybe was there more healing to be done?
Well, yes, it definitely took me longer than I thought. I mean, I wanted to do everything right now, as I suppose most people do, but yeah, it's a slower process. And I think it usually takes about 2 years for you to get your final shape of your limb, because obviously the muscles in my quads, I don't use them because I don't have anything below my knee, so they just atrophy. And it usually takes about 2 years for them to fully atrophy down to whatever size it's going to be. So you're trying to get a socket to fit your leg, and every day you put it on, it's a different shape and a different size. So it's just a constant battle. And even throughout the day, I mean, you're having to rejig it at lunchtime, and after a hard training session, yeah, it's different than before the hard training session. just a constant battle with that. But no, it's calmed down now. I think we've got kind of a final shape, and yeah, everything's fitting pretty well at the moment, and has been for quite a few months now.
Great stuff. We talked about all the fantastic kit that was involved in your other prosthetic leg and the knee joint and the app and all this bits and bobs. Is there similar tech in the blade as well then, or is it more of a fixed feature?
It No, there's no tech at all in it. It's just a mechanical knee joint that really, you're trying to get it out. You're just trying to get it out straight, land on it straight, and then as you pull your knee through, it kind of bends. It's very simplistic. Very easy to fall over on too, which I've had plenty of tumbles. But no,
Getting yeah, getting used to it must have been like it was probably quite daunting, I guess, with it being such a small, narrow piece of metal. Even psychologically looking down at it, like even thinking, where a leg once was, now there's this here small piece of blade, and it must have been quite unnerving for a period of time. You're flying at it now, I have to say, but I'm thinking just back at that sort of early days.
yeah, but back at the start for sure. I mean, you were running everywhere, just looking straight down, just to make sure that it was swinging through properly and wasn't catching on anything. And it's really only been in recent months now that I can actually get into a bit of a flow, and enjoy running again. Like most of my running was generally looking at my feet, thinking, "Don't fall down, don't fall down." But we're kind of past that now, and it gets into the brain the same way the walking leg did. I mean, obviously, I'm wearing the walking leg much more throughout the day, so it just becomes normal a lot quicker. And then you only have the running blade on, for half an hour here, an hour there. A few days later, you'll have it on for an hour. So it's taken so much longer for my brain to just get comfortable with it and make it
It's
feel like it's a normal leg.
Yeah, and it is part of you now. Like, it is this. It's an extension of your limb. It is the new limb, and it is the thing that has enabled you to overcome your disability and to get on with things. And what a way locally here in Omagh earlier on in the year, whenever you took part in the Omagh Half Marathon, you
Yeah.
spoke about it on the last episode and how you that would be a real goal. Quite a challenging goal, I have to say. 13 mile is not to be sniffed at for anybody. So what about the training, how that got through, and of course the actual day itself? What's your memories looking back?
I only tend to remember the good parts. um,
Don't
but
we all?
no, so the last day, the last time that I was speaking to you, I said that I would like to do it, and I think it was maybe 6 months out or something like that. But I wasn't able. That was last year that I was hoping to do it, and I wasn't able to. You know, I had big goals and big ambitions. I wanted to do it and everything, but when I put my leg on and went for a run, I could only run probably maybe 200 meters, half a lap of the track, and then I was in pain. So yeah, 13 mile was just kind of biting off more than I could chew at that moment. So yes, got the socket made and everything, and spent a few months at that, and then yeah, then from then on, really just started stretching out the miles every time that I went out, and just tried to build it nice and slow, because obviously my limb isn't. Obviously, when you have an amputation, the way that they leave it isn't built for weight bearing. It's not built for weight to go through that part of your leg,
Wow.
so it's very sore on it, and I was doing 3 and 4K and coming home and having blisters and not being able to walk for a day or two. And, you had to kind of learn to do it wrong, to do it right. And the next day you would go out, you would probably place the blister plasters a little bit better than you did the last time. And you just had to figure it out as you go. But, yeah, stretched out the miles to, we got up around the 13 mile mark. And then we done the Omagh Half Marathon this year. So yeah, I was really, really happy to finally get it done. I'd been talking about it for a few years. since after the accident, the first day that I was at Omagh Half, I was on crutches after the accident, and I was like, yeah, I need to do this. I need to do it someday. So I got to do it this year.
Brilliant stuff. I remember actually going to the start line, and I bumped into you at the start line. And
Yes.
I was buzzing to see, and I know that I actually didn't know it at the time, but there was a guy doing a sort of wee filming. I guess you were capturing it for whatever purpose. There was a person filming it. And of course, I think I might have dropped an F bomb. I think that didn't make cut, but I was going, "You fucking got this, buddy!" So that was all. I was so psyched out for you just to see you at the start line. Running along some of the other guys in the tri club and people that we both know. Um,
Hmm.
First thing I wanted to chat about was the actual day of Omaha was
Hmm.
absolutely horrendous. The weather was shocking. It was very cold. It was very windy, and there was a savage amount of water. Did
Hmm.
any of downpours or any of that get in the way or make you any apprehensive about taking on this route? Because it's quite a challenging route up hills, and I know there's a lot of water across the road in certain sections and whatnot. How did you get through all that?
Yeah, the conditions they definitely weren't what you would call ideal. The morning time we just got soaked before we even started. But you know what? Once you got going, it wasn't too bad. Um, Whenever the ground is wet, I just have to be very aware of manhole covers, things like that there, the metal manhole covers on the road, those be very slippy. And I
Hmm.
don't have the same control over the running blade that I would with my foot. So yeah, just been very cautious of those things. But there was a few big puddles. I just had to stop and walk through them, and the same as everybody else. Everybody else was doing the same, and I was lucky enough that Lucy McDermott had run with me, so she was keeping me right and keeping people out of my way, and she kept the path clear for me. So you know what she's like when she gets going. She's just
No
something else.
better woman. If Lucy McDermott's shouting at you to get out of that in way, you're going to get out of the way. We both know
So
that. And I'll probably
yeah,
apologize on her
that
behalf
was
for anybody that she shouted at.
so it was great to have Lucy running with me and just kind of keeping all the things right. And or she was on point with nutrition and everything and keeping an eye on the clock. And yes, so that went really well.
There's a lovely photograph of you and a bit of video footage of you crossing the line, and you can see it in your face just how much it meant to you to be able to cross that line. What was it like for you?
My goal was to make it to the finish line. That was my goal. I didn't I was looking at my times and whatnot that I was doing from doing my longer runs and whatnot, and you have some kind of an idea, but I just know it from before. I can go out for a run and a bolt can come loose. Things like that can happen. You could have a fall. I can have a fall much easier than someone else running. So my goal was to see the finish line. That's all I wanted to do. So whenever we finally got there, I was just absolutely over the moon, and you know, yeah, just a lot of emotion and put a lot into it, put a lot of training into it, and a lot of people just has followed the journey and yeah, backed me the whole way. It's just been absolutely great, and so many people at the finish line. Everyone was there. Oh, there's high fives and hugs and the whole show. It was great
No, it was a great atmosphere. I'm sure you got great cheers and enthusiasms and claps and whatnot the whole way around the course too.
the whole
Um,
way around.
and a lovely medal and a well deserved rest after that. Or did you go on the rip? Did you just take a charge of pints after that, or what did you do?
I wasn't too bad. No, we did wait a couple now, but I wasn't too sore on it. I was
Good stuff.
I was actually pretty sore. My limb was sore after it. Now sore for a few days. I never done the full distance before that. I think I only got up to 11.5 miles, something like that. So yeah, once you're up running that length of time over, it was well over 2 hours, closer to 2.5 on it. It's just this punishment. for the limb, you know. So yeah, I was sore after it now. I got
No, we're
myself
here.
home, got a pint or
Absolutely
two in the pub, and then home for a cup of tea and chill out.
brilliant stuff. Absolutely amazing and fantastic achievement, Finbar. Well done, you. Well done, you.
Thank you very much.
The other thing I was going to chat to you about is I have seen you at the Omagh Tri Club, and I know you've been at the pool and you've been putting in a fair old shift in the swimming pool. Your swimming's coming on really, really well. Um, and earlier on, then, whenever we were chatting, we were getting this organized over the WhatsApp, and you sent me one of them photographs, the down shot that we all send each other whenever we're on the dreaded turbo. So
Uh-huh.
we know you can run. I know you can swim, and you've sent me a photograph of you chancing a bike. Is there a triathlon in you? Do we think?
It's all pointing that direction. So it is, yeah. I think
I'm
that's
I'm going to blame your dad for this.
something like that. Yeah, well, he's leading by example for sure. He's doing a lot of training at the minute too. Um, yeah, I think that. So now that I've done the Omagh Half, and I've been swimming, been doing quite a bit of swimming and working hard on it. And then yeah, this past few months I've just been trying to figure out a bike and how this works and how to pedal a bike with one leg. And yeah, just a bit of difficulty getting information on it, and just reached out to a few people overseas, uh, a few people in France, a few Americans and whatnot that I see cycling, and asked them a million questions, and they've been very helpful and telling me how they set their bike up. So I went down to the shed one day and built a stump cup for my own bike, and yeah, actually got out on it, out on the road at the weekend. It was my first day out on it, not on the turbo. So I've been doing quite a bit of training on the turbo, but I was up around Loughnacrory on it on Sunday.
Brilliant. Picked a nice flat course then to go out on your maiden voyage. Plenty of hills around Loughnacrory.
I know. I don't know where there's a flat road in this country.
There's not too many flat roads, in fairness, around Omagh. To be sure,
No.
that's a fact. And how are you finding that then, Finbar? From obviously with only being able to power from one leg, that one leg is obviously very very strong. You've been doing a lot of weight training on it. You've been doing a lot of calisthenics work. You're an absolute inspiration. And the amount of work that you're putting in, you're in some neck. But even just the balance is it difficult to balance on a bike with you having more weight on one side or
Probably the toughest bit of it is getting on and off. See, whenever you're actually going, whenever you're traveling along, balance is actually fine. It's okay. It's just, just kind of kicking off and getting clicked into the pedal before you go that slow that you fall over on your side, and getting
uh,
clicked out at the end. But no, if you can get that, if you can nail that and get flicked in, get a pedal or two, it's all good.
brilliant
So
stuff.
that's the big thing. So we've been practicing away at that, just dismounts and mounting the bike and everything.
Can I tentatively suggest that you need to have quite a set of cojones to think about getting on a bike with one leg? But yet again, here you are, refusing to lie down, refusing to allow yourself to become any different or be treated any different from anybody else, and away you're at it. But it's just amazes me, just your resolve and your determination, your mindset. And we spoke a lot about your mindset in the first episode.
Yeah.
Um, so you've just adapted the bike. You've got a socket now where your leg would be down that side. And is it just sit there like a cup? What way does that work?
Basically, yeah. So I built a little frame, and then I've screwed the socket, like a socket, and it's really just to hold your leg. Whenever you're pushing just with one side, you get this like side to side movement too in your hips, and it's wasted energy. So if you build that stump cup, you can anchor that side so that you can get all the power into
Ah,
driving
yes.
that one side.
So
So
you've
that's
got
really
the piston effect. Just keep going on that one side.
basically, yeah. So you're just pushing with that one side. So no, I watched the Paralympics in Paris in 2024, and I watched the para-triathlon and was just blown away by it, very inspired. And yeah, watched it, and I was like, well, if them guys can do it, so can I. So that's kind
Uh,
of that's what, I reached out to a few of them, asked them about the Stump Cup and how does it all work. And yeah, very, very helpful. So I'm building it myself because I don't know who else is going to do it for me.
Talk me through the transition then. Finbarr, transition is a nightmare for any of us, for able-bodied people, for anybody that's ever done triathlon. Loads and loads of shit can go wrong in transition. Getting in and out of a wetsuit's a disaster. It's a nightmare. Getting in and out of the transition, all the bikes, the mount line, the dismount line. What's it like for someone who has a disability? Are you going to need assistance to get if or on the bike and things like that if you were to take part in an actual event? Or can you do these things by yourself, or what way will it work for you?
I mean, I would be able to do it all myself. I would probably, if I'm able to, get some assistance just out of the water. It usually looks like you get some assistance out of the water, and then you have your running leg and everything set up right beside the water, maybe a chair or something there.
Right,
Wetsuit off, put the running leg on, and then you run into transition, and then you get
right.
ready for the bike. So that's what it looks like as far as I can see. Um, yeah, get ready for the bike, out for the bike, and then whenever you come back in, your running legs there too. So
It's
yeah, there's a few
amazing.
extra steps. There's a few extra steps. I mean, we're not definitely not going to be as quick as just running out and straight into transition. But what do you do?
Well, it's the fact that you're going to give it a go. It's the fact that you're not just going to give it a go. I know for a fact you're going to smash it. Like you're just going to you're a guy who sets his mind on something, and then you figure out how to do it. Are we going to see you in an event this year, or are we maybe just seeing how you fare out?
Definitely going to do something this year. So I've entered Loch McCrory, try the lock. So
Brilliant.
without a doubt that I would like to enter another few. I don't know what yet, but I've really just been kind of waiting to get the bike to a place where I would actually be able to use it, because for a long time it's kind of been set up on the turbo, and I wasn't just confident enough to take it out on the road, and I wasn't happy with the way that the Stump Cup was and that it was going to be safe enough. But no, I'm pretty happy with where it is now, so I'll have to check out the calendar. But without a doubt, I'll be at Loch McCrory. That's
Brilliant
the
stuff.
plan for this year. Just get as much, I suppose, race time this year as I can, and see if we're any good at it for a start.
No, you will be, absolutely. I have no doubt. Finbar, it's been absolutely class crack linking in with you again and catching up. You've come on so much, and it's very exciting actually to see where you're going to end up. And I look forward to lining up against you and try the lock. Bring it on.
I'm looking forward to it. Good man, Mickey. Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by Velo Yellow, providing bike transport to events across Europe. Supported also by Fear the Turtle Triathlon Coaching, Conway Cycles and Vitalize Omagh. Contact details available in the episode description.
So our second guest today is Gary Rea. Gary, very welcome back onto the podcast. You and I last spoke back in episode 69 at the beginning of March, where you were explaining how you were looking forward to taking on the mighty Marathon Des Sables in the Sahara Desert. Absolutely buzzing to find out how you get on. So over to you.
Yeah, Maggie, listen, thanks very much for inviting me back. And the last time I was on your podcast, I generally was a quivering wreck. Um, from the moment you push the button to say you want to do this event, it creates all this anxiety. But once you get into the desert, all the anxiety that you suffered, have I got the right kit? Have I the right food? Have I enough food? That's all out the window because now you're in the desert. So the next bit of anxiety is actually getting to the start line and starting 2 days later. But the thing I have to say is that anybody I spoke to prior to this event raved about the Marathon Des Sables. Although I believed them, I still was anxious. But now that I've done it, I come back and say it was absolutely sensational. Hardest thing I've ever done, but I absolutely loved it.
What sort of situation were you faced with whenever you arrived there? Because I suppose you have these ideas of what it might look like in your head, but the reality of it, more often than not, isn't quite what you had pictured. So in my head, going out there is just vast sand everywhere. Was it like that? Or try and sort of paint the picture for us to, arriving on camp or on that site.
Yeah, so arriving, even that was an emotional experience because what the Marathon des Sables do very well is they put on an amazing event. So when you get off the coach, and bearing in mind there was 1,400 people there, the amount of coaches they required to travel from Orizati, which was 6 hours from there out into the desert, incredible logistics. And when you arrive, you get off the bus and you're greeted by a red carpet. On either side of the red carpet, you have 40 camels kneeling down and a local band playing you into the camp. And it is emotional. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, who is this for? Because it was incredible. And so you feel immediately welcome and you feel part of something a lot bigger than you had even anticipated. Now, the camp itself, it sat sort of on a very flat desert area, and a lot of the terrain that we went across was a hard surface. I reckon, or I'd read before, something like 30% of it is sort of sand dunes and 70% is hard, dried up riverbeds. So there is a real combination of both. Um, but certainly where we were in a bit of a valley, and so no matter where you looked, you saw these massive sand dunes and mountains, and it was absolutely beautiful and terrifying in equal measures.
I'm trying to sort of in my mind's eye imagine what it must be look like to be met with a guard of honor with camels kneeling down as you come in. And what I'm also thinking as well is there must have been a queer stink of them.
Listen, the smell of the camels was nothing compared to the stink of me after 7 days in the desert. I'm not getting ahead of myself a wee bit here, but I lived in my own filth for a week. I didn't wash or change for a week, and after a week, felt quite comfortable with that.
There's a point where you reach like sort of maximum filth where it just can't get any worse. So you just kind of rock on, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. But so the organization behind it, MDS, is just incredible. Sometimes they're a bit OTT with their briefings, and in the mornings when you're setting out for your first trek into the desert, you are hyped up. The guy in Corliss, I mean, he is David Brent on speed. When he's trying to motivate you, after day 3, all you want to do is kill him.
Brilliant. Remind us again, just before we get into the kind of the match report of the event, what is that involved in the event from day one right to the end, to the finish line?
Well, the thing about, again, the MDS are very good. When you arrive there, the first day and a half, actually, you're not doing anything other than kit check. They want to make sure that you have brought your medical form, which has been signed by your GP. They want to see your original ECG, and it has to be the original. So you queue for a lot during the first day or day and a half because they want to go through all that. They are meticulous. They also weigh your rucksack to make sure you've the right weight in it because people try to take less and less food, which obviously it's insane, but you've got to carry all your own food with you. So that first day and a half is all admin stuff and briefings. And then also what you're doing is you're getting to know your tent mates. And I only knew one guy in the tent. He was a friend of mine, and the other 5 guys, complete strangers. But within no time at all, you're just one tribe. The lot of us, we all had our own. Like I was the oldest one at 62, and the youngest was probably, I would say, 32. But we all had the same fears, concerns, and excitement. So all those aspects add to it, and they also, in effect, when you look back, help get you through the event.
What was going through your mind, Gary, on the first morning whenever they blow the whistle, they presume they blow a whistle or fire a cannon or whatever it is that they do. What was going through your mind as you were setting off on what would be an absolutely epic journey?
Well, I suppose like everybody was high-fiving each other and, "Come on, we can do this," all that sort of encouragement. And my pal Derek, who him and I had said beforehand, "We'll do this event together. We'll stay together." Can I just say that's a mistake, right? Because if I'm quicker than him or he's quicker than me and one has to wait for the other one, then one is going to resent the other for going ahead, and the other one is resenting the other one for not saying go ahead. So it creates its own little bit of friction. So initially, when you go out and you are nervous, and away you go into the darkness, and there's lights everywhere because you have your head torch on, and it is exciting. It is very exciting because they do pump you up. It's not just a whistle or a cannon. They're playing Highway to Hell. They're banging this out as you head across the start line and into wherever you're meant to go. Now you're given a map of roughly how many, well, not roughly, how many aid stations there's going to be. It's very detailed. So you know at all stages, right? Within 8, 9, 10 kilometers, I'm going to hit an aid station. And when you hit an aid station, or even before you hit the aid station, the volunteers come out to greet you, and they are amazing. These blue coats, and they are volunteers, and they're cheering and shouting, and that also lifts you. And on top of that, they have 121 um, different medical staff on the course, and they actually run out to meet you as well. But they're also checking to see how you are. They're very, very strict. So that's the one thing I felt at all time, that I felt safe. I felt safe the whole time, and that was great. But when you hit the first couple of sand dunes, and I took poles with me, and I deliberated for months and months whether to take poles or not. It was the best decision that I made, was to take poles, because that saves 20% energy. And when I was going up these sand dunes and my pal was struggling, then I knew this was the right decision to make.
Whenever you're talking about sand dunes, my experience of sand dunes is whatever Donegal has to offer. So I'm thinking Rossnala, Rossnala Beach. That's sort of my experience of a sand dune. The sand dunes in the Sahara are probably a wee bit more difficult to navigate. Talk me through what a sand dune looks like, and sort of getting over a sand dune. What's all that about?
Yeah. So the curious thing about the sand dunes, that's the other thing. When you're in the event, you're always looking for the area that's the hardest sand, as in packed sand, so you don't sink in. Actual fact, they're not so different to Rossnala or Portrush, the sand dunes, but you learn also to follow somebody up the sand dunes. So if I follow a competitor in front, I'm putting my footsteps where their footsteps were. It creates like almost like proper steps, and you get up the sand dunes a lot quicker. One of the sand dunes we did, I think, was day 4, maybe day 3, and it was huge, absolutely huge. Even with my poles, the poles went right down to my knuckles. So I put it right into the sand, and it disappeared in the sand. And you know what, Mickey? It was comical. It was comical because people were scrambling up on their hands and knees. And this is where sort of the collegiate effect of the participants is. Everybody's helping everybody else. Unless you're actually in the top 100 and you're looking to get a really brilliant time, everybody's helping everybody else. It's not a case of walking over the top of each other. It sort of brings out the best in humanity when you see these people together, all helping each other and just trying to get up these hills, they were sensational. And of course, once you get to the top, you're rewarded by the views as well, which is out of this world. And so all those things are amazing.
I suppose approaching one of these big sand dunes with the anticipation of the physical struggle, just in terms of trying to get purchase on the ground, feet's kind of slipping away behind you, hands scrambling, poles disappearing, all that huge amount of energy to be expended. Are you fueling ahead of each of these um, big obstacles, I guess? What's your strategy to navigate through this type of terrain?
Maybe I wish I could say to you here now that I had a strategy. My strategy was just get through it. Now, people who are wiser could see these coming, and maybe 200 yards back, they would take a few extra sort of nuts and stuff to try and get a bit extra energy. I was just taking food when I was hungry because, I had them in my pockets and had plenty in my pockets to get me through each day. But no, you kind of see the massive sand dunes and you go, oh, here we go. Let's see how. A lot of the time, all I could see in front of me was the feet because I was looking down, and everybody says you must keep looking up because you're going to miss all this. Unless you look up, you're going to miss everything. So I was checking out my feet more than anything else. But and it does take a lot out of you. But because you've trained so much, your energy levels come back up in no time at all. And maybe at the top you might take a bit of extra water or take some tailwind or something like that, and you're good to go again. And the excitement of running down the other side of the sand dunes, you're like a 5-year-old child playing, running wildly, in the glens, wherever you happen to be, and just sheer abandonment of any responsibility. And you're just going, really? I'm a 62-year-old man behaving like a 5-year-old, and I am loving every minute of it.
Sounds absolutely amazing. I can just picture you racing down there, like just woo, just going mad. Like, you talked about the recovery there, and you talked about your training. Obviously, you didn't go out there unprepared. You put in a massive, massive training block, evident by the very fact that you finished the event. But just in terms of moving through the event, with it being multi-days, did you find that you were getting back to your base camp in time, getting rested in time, getting refueled, rehydrated? How did all that kind of work out for you? Was there any hiccups along that kind of way?
No, everything was brilliant because even before I went, like I said before, like my back bedroom was like a mess flipping lab with all the wee bags marked out how many calories per day. And then that was just for your food, for your breakfast and then your tea. And then I had extra pockets to put, you had about carried about 800 calories worth of uh, food and stuff. So in that sense, I was never hungry. I was never really exhausted. And when we got back into the camp, you just were just so elated to get back. And that also gave you a lift. So in terms of rest, you were still getting plenty of rest in between. And it's a bit like, when you're training for Ironman and stuff and you do all those multiple cycles day after day after day. Once you get day 5 on a big cycle event, you're stronger. So each day that you're doing this, your legs are actually getting stronger, not weaker. And I had that in the back of my mind. I was thinking, right, guys, you're going to get stronger each day. And that's why the big event, the big day isn't until day 4, because people are acclimatized. They're used to what the sand dunes can throw at them. And then it's a case of, right, okay, I'm good to go. I'm ready to go for this.
That's a great mindset. So before you even went out, you were anticipating you were going to get stronger, and that's how you felt, and that's how it managed to work out that way for you. What about base camp then in the evenings? Was there guys coming back into base camp just and flaking out? Was the bodies dropping left, right, and center? I'm assuming everybody was in a similar ilk to yourself, having gone there, having put in the prep. But was there a bit of a party vibe going on at night, or were people very quiet and just looking to get some shut eye?
No, it was a good camaraderie in the tent. Now, the only downside is if you lost somebody in your tent. So we had a guy in our tent, and he had qualified for Kona. He was a sub 10-hour Ironman in Hamburg, and he was he was a proper phenomenal athlete. And but he went after day 2. He had done the Pilgrim's Trail in England 6 weeks beforehand and had an issue with an IT band. Um, so that was okay. So like, I'm just going to persevere here. Day 2, other IT band went. He could hardly walk. So the downside for that, other than the obvious, whereby his event is now over, but he then is brought back to our tent. We're buzzing about the event and what's going to happen tomorrow, and we're trying not to be buzzing about it because we understand this poor guy. He's almost in tears because he's leaving. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the other side of the coin. It's great when everybody is going through it together. It's great when we're all having our great wee stories. But when somebody in your tent then has to leave because of injury, that's a bit of a downer. That is a bit of a downer. So that's the only downside. Now, the other thing that got everybody in the tent, except for me, was everybody had blisters. Everybody had terrible blisters. Now, again, what the Marathon Des Sables are really, really good at, leading up to the event, months before the event, they give you different briefings. And one briefing was foot care. So they recommended 2 different creams to use 30 days before the event. Like, my wife was getting fed up seeing my feet hanging over the edge of the tee because every night, oh, Gary, not again. I said, I have to do this. I've been told to do this. So every night I was moisturizing my feet. It's the best my feet have ever been in. And I never got a blister. The only one, the tent, didn't get a blister. And these guys got bad blisters.
I mean, just whenever you say that, the last time we were chatting, we were having a bit of crack about putting fake tan on and stuff like that there. But you know what? It's obviously worked. And these men and people that have organized this event know what they're talking about. So if they tell you this is what you should do to prevent blisters, hey ho, more fool you for not doing it. So well done for sticking to it.
Listen, it was brilliant. Every single day, the biggest queue was for the blister tent. And, not meant to sound, xenophobic, but there was French doctors and British doctors. And if you got a French doctor, it was a bit more painful than a British doctor. The British doctor, now, this is from what the guys told me, they dreaded getting a French doctor because they just fired the needle in. So they fire the needle into the blister, they take out the fluid, and they pump in iodine and a solution to actually, seal your blister up again. And they were saying they weren't particularly gentle about it. Whereas the British doctors and nurses, they were amazing. But it was like a scene from like a apocalyptic movie. People walking about, shuffling about after they come out of the tent, and you're thinking, how do those poor souls get up the next day and go and do another marathon? But they did. It was phenomenal.
Brilliant stuff. Blisters are a fairly serious thing, but I suppose in the whole broad scheme of things, a blister could be viewed as quite a minor ailment to have to contend with. And I'm just thinking about Ironman Lanzarote not long over. It was on there just at the weekend. And I was chatting to a few of the guys from the club there last night, and they were talking about the heat. They were talking about the ambulances going up and down and picking up people left, right, centre. And that was down to the heat, people not being used to the heat and suffering and persevering and pushing themselves too much in those conditions. Was there anything like that was going on with this event, or were people a wee bit more? Were the medic team on point to say, "Hold on a minute, no, we're not going to let you go out. We don't think you're going to be able to sustain it anymore"? How did that sort of work out?
Yeah, the medic team, they were absolutely amazing. And so when you went into each checkpoint, it's not like Ironman where you get your juice or you get your bit of orange and away you go. And each checkpoint actually had small tents whereby you get yourself out of the sun. And also those wee small tents were also used by the medics to treat people who clearly, needed to come off the course. So they were very, very good. And the fact that, the aid stations were quite close, people who were beginning to suffer were never that far away from an aid station. So when they came into the aid station, right away the medics say, "Oh, hold on a second here," and they would take them to one side. And and some of them were casevaced out of the event, even by helicopter. But by and large, first of all, it wasn't that hot. It didn't get above 35, 36 degrees, and because you're starting so early in the morning, you're in darkness, and then obviously the sunrise and stuff. So a lot of the time you are avoiding the hottest part of the day. So you were pretty fortunate. But here's another one I was going to say to you about. So one of the biggest problems was the toilet facilities, right? Think of your worst festival experience or your worst Ironman experience, and that's what it was like. And so you have to bring your own toilet paper, right? So toilet paper became this currency now that people were dealing in. It was honestly, it was anybody here, and you're going, "Well, I don't really want to give away my toilet roll." Anyway, so you'd go out and they had these little sort of toilets surrounded by Velcro pop-up tent thing. And after the first day, I realized the best one to go to, maybe 10 in a row. If you went to the very end, then that's where the hand sanitizer was. So even though you had Velcro to close up your wee tent, you're sitting there and then somebody's looking in at you, not intentionally, But just the fact that it's the same eye level, I went, right, I'm not going to sit there again because this is way too weird. And the other thing is, so you had to bring your own, they supplied the bags. You put the bags where the toilet was meant to be, and then away you go, which is great until one day I hadn't attached mine properly. It was carnage, absolute carnage. So I spent the next 10 minutes on my hands and knees trying to clear up because I didn't want the next poor soul getting been impacted by my disgraceful behavior. And so I'm thinking, really, is this what your life has come to? You're in a desert on your hands and knees cleaning up your own feces. So it was shocking. And then my pal, he went out one morning to go, and he said somebody had forgot to put the plastic bag in, and it just went straight through the hole. So you thought that aspect of it was carnage. So you learned then the best place to go actually to the loo is at one of the aid stations because not that many people use them. And then, so the issues that potentially will stop you finishing the Marathon Des Sables, first one is blisters will stop you. Secondly, if it's too hot. So I think 3 years ago was 50 degrees plus. 50% of the people didn't finish. The other one actually is gastroenteritis. So half the camp suffered from gastroenteritis, half the camp, and they still managed to get themselves through it. And even though the camp do supply, sanitizers and stuff, people did get this bug. So those are the three main reasons why you'll not finish the Marathon Des Sables. And if you're fortunate enough that you can sort of sidestep them, you're on a winner. But I have horrible memories of the toilets.
Let's not linger on the toilet scenes. And apologies if anybody's listening or watching this here while they're having their lunch. It's put me clean off pigs, I can tell you that. But in terms of just that gastro issue, would that have been just maybe potentially from the lack of sanitization, the lack of facilities to clean yourself? You talked about maybe not being able to get yourself cleaned for the full duration of that. Was there even running water, showers, any types of facilities like that at all to give you a chance to keep yourself clean and to refresh?
No. They always give you, I think it was 3-4 liters of water at the end of each day. So you use that water whatever way you want to use it, whether it's to cook, clean, or whatever. And there actually was plenty to give yourself a bit of a. But I mean, I brought a thing called Pits and Bits, which is a tiny sort of cloth. Add water, it creates, like a bit of a cloth to wash yourself with. And I think like one day I joyfully said to the lads, right, I'm going to give myself a bit of a scrub here, boys. And so that was a big event there. I'm in my sleeping bag, give myself a good old scrub. Here's it, Gary, you're spending too much time there. But the I think no matter what, because you're constantly out and constantly, back and forth to the loo and stuff, even with the sanitizers. And I also brought clinical wipes as well, which I used every day before eating my food because you just don't know what you're picking up. So yeah, there is a potential there. And then once you get a bad bug like that, you're in big trouble.
Absolutely. Gary, what about the finish line? Talk me through that last day. What it was like, what was going through your mind, what you seen as you were heading towards what would be the end of this epic event.
Look, I'll mention the long day first because the reason why, when you're in camp, the only thing you ever think about is the long day, and the long day is 100 kilometers. So that's all you think about. I've got through this day, this day, this day. Day 4, long day, 100 kilometers. And then you're talking about, well, what strategy are you going to use? And I spoke to one guy and he says, get to 70 kilometers and then rest for a couple of hours. Or somebody else says, rest between, say, 2 and 5, because that's where it's really, really hot. And so that's always on the back of your mind. So we got the long day. And so in the long day, you start at 5 o'clock in the morning. So you see the sun going up, you see the sun going down, and you see the sun coming back up again, and then you finish. Well, that is certainly for me. So I actually hallucinated on that day, Mickey.
Right.
So I'm about 20 hours into it and walking across a really long piece of, riverbed. It seemed to go on for miles and miles and miles. And as I said earlier, the volunteers would come out and greet you as you're getting close to one of the aid stations. And I saw this girl in the distance. I went, oh, brilliant. Because I was on my own at that stage and I was lonely. So I said, oh, great. I'm going to have somebody to talk to. And then she starts to dance back and forward. And she was on like a little platform, which was a slightly lighter color than the rest of the terrain around her. I went, well, that's a bit strange, but sure, that's okay. And she was dancing back and forward. And she's about 200 yards ahead of me. And then she started to tweet to the birds, right? There's not a bird within 100 miles. And she's tweeting to these birds. And they're tweeting back to her. And I'm going, wow, how talented is she? And then she is joined by two other blokes. And oh, this is great. I'm going to have 3 people to talk to. And of course, I got closer and they were just beamed up. And then I just laughed to myself, thinking, right, okay, that's definitely a hallucination. So, so once you get through that big day and you're back at camp and you're just thinking, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I got through that. And then this is where the MDS again are very, very good. There was a lady still out on the course, and she'd been on the course for about 30 hours, okay, 36 hours a night. And they call all the participants together to clap her in and cheer her in coming across the line. And I thought, yeah, this is where they really, really get people together. And it was amazing. And that lady finished the whole thing. She was amazing. So because it took her so long to do that, she had less time to recover. The rest of us all had about 18 hours to recover. She had only like 8 hours to recover and then just going again for a full marathon. But to take you to what you were saying about the last day is only like 15 miles. So right away you're thinking, this is brilliant. So like a lot of the MDS, I was walking with my pal and I said to Derek, I'm running. I'm just going to run this. And he says, right, where you going, mate? And I ran it and just loved every minute of it. And then the last 5K, a sandstorm kicked in. A sandstorm kicked in and right into your face, right? And it was pretty tough. So I started to draft behind a camel. I kid you not, there was a camel in front of me. I went, right, I'm getting up behind this camel and I'm going to stay behind this camel until we get across the line. And getting across the line was phenomenal because the guys who'd been in your tent who were ahead of us, they're waiting for us and they're hugging you and all the usual stuff. And then, curiously enough, where it ends is at the edge of a town right beside a hotel. So I went, right, hotel, I'm straight in there. So anybody else is straight to the bar, let's get some drink. I'm straight into the toilet. I'm thinking, right, I haven't seen my face for a week. I'm going to have a wash. I'm in this 5-star hotel, washing all this grime off my face. And then I went, oh, and there's a toilet. What? And it's got a door and lots of toilet roll. So I spent 10 minutes in there as well, loving life. And then you go out and have a few beers with the lads. And then that's it. It's just sensational, Mickey. Brilliant. And then you've 2 days back with that group because the second day is the award ceremony. At that stage, everybody's just buzzing. So yeah, it was just out of this world.
It's absolutely fantastic to be able to look at you on the screen and to hear that. You know, just the vibe that you're sending out is just one of absolute just joy, celebration. Just it sounds absolutely amazing. So well done, you, Gary, for actually doing it. How many people started? How many people finished? Were you the oldest? Where did you know what sort of stats can you throw at us?
You know what? The stats aren't as good as Ironman now. There was a guy I spoke to from Castle Rock, originally from Omagh, a guy called Peter Ferris. I don't know if you've ever heard of his name before, Mickey, no?
Not sure of him, to be honest. No.
Right, so Mickey's 70 and he's done 700 marathons.
Christ.
I think he might have won the first Belfast Marathon or second. And he's done over 300 ultra marathons, right?
Jesus.
So he was there and he was there with a young girl to try and get this young girl across the line. And he was an inspiration, an absolute inspiration. So I think there's like 1,400 started. The attrition rate isn't that bad because most people who enter these events, and it costs so much money, they train hard for it and they're pretty clued up. The people who sadly dropped out, you can almost tell on the very first day, they're not going to make it. I was chatting to a couple of Americans and I'm thinking, no, mate, you're never getting through this. And sure enough. So I think only about 100 dropped out for various reasons, Mickey.
Yeah.
And just another thing I was going to say was the guy who won it from Morocco, 21 hours, 21 hours for 270 kilometers. I took 64 hours, 21 hours. And the girl, I think the leading female was 22 or 23 hours. Really, really incredible. Another thing I was going to say is once you parachute yourself into that environment, you're surrounded by people who this isn't just, they just don't do the Marathon Des Sables. One guy I was chatting to, he was running across New Zealand. That was his next event. Some other guy had a 400K event to do. And they asked me what was my next event. I says, well, my next event is I have a 16-mile run round Rathlin Island coming up in July. So these guys are off the scale, Mickey, off the scale.
Sadly. Isn't it wild though, surround yourself by positive people and just, the to even be in company like that, and for us to be in your company is an absolute privilege. We're all very blessed to be part of this type of community, and whatever it is
Amen.
about the endurance scene, it's something special. It really is.
Yeah, it definitely brings the best out in people. It definitely brings out the best people. And actually, in fact, the other thing I noticed was there were quite a few husband and wives doing it. I'm not, well, I know it was me and my darling wife. There'd be a divorce by the end of it.
I don't think my darling wife could cope with the toilet and facilities. I think that would just be enough. No, definitely not. Gary, thank you so much for coming back onto the podcast and sharing that absolutely phenomenal experience. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're an absolute gem. Great sport, great crack. Look after yourself and give Rathlin Island a good old beating whenever you're out there.
Yeah, love it. And listen, Mickey, thanks so much for inviting me on. I really enjoyed chatting to you. And as I said before, hopefully it'll inspire some other grey-haired old Egypt to do something similar.
Brilliant stuff. Good man, Gary. Take care.
All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.